Supreme Director Nekor's crystalline appendages trembled, an involuntary shimmer of raw, unfiltered dread. The control room of Orbital Station Virillion pulsed with quiet hums, flickering lights, and one very proud ensign. "We've captured human juveniles." Ensign Lorak beamed, his bioluminescent spots blinking in a triumphant rhythm. 3 of them, found wandering outside their knowledge hatchery during Twilight Cycle, perfect candidates for leverage. Enkor's translucent body phased through several shades of anxious blue before settling on a sickly hue of nuclear green. "Ensign," Nekor said slowly, dangerously, "how long have you been assigned to the Terran observation sector?" 3 solar cycles, Supreme Director," Lorak replied crisply. "This is my first tactical success." "In those 3 cycles," Enkor hissed, his voice like cooling plasma coils, "did you ever finish reading the interspecies dossier on human parental instincts?" Lorak's glow dimmed. I skimmed it, sir. Something about them being protective?" "Skimmed it?" Enkor's crystalline lattice vibrated so violently it nearly sparked a feedback loop in the station's atmosphere processors. "Do you recall what happened to the Varnic Armada when they incinerated a human yellow transport pod?" "A what now?" "A bus, Ensign. A school bus. No fatalities. Just an empty vehicle. And yet there isn't enough left of that fleet to classify it as debris." Before Lorak could protest further, the station's proximity alarm howled like a dying star whale. Officer Tharn waddled to the central view screen, his glow cycling through nervous purples. "Sir, there are 37 Terran vessels inbound, 23 military class, 4 civilian, and—" "Is that a ground transport cruiser?" Enkor leaned forward. "A ground cruiser. Describe it." "It's a minivan, sir." A jagged silence sliced through the room like a gravity blade. "By the shattered moons," Renol whispered, collapsing into his gelatinous command chair. "That's Matron Sarella, PTA head. She brings nutrient discs to athletic drills and once bench-pressed a scout shuttle when her child forgot his snack pack." "But our defenses," Lorak stammered. "We have superior shielding, plasma lances, Class F suppressors." "Let me explain something about humans and their spawn," Enkor cut in, tone flat as a neutron field. "They're already irrational. They consume liquid poisons recreationally. They sprint until unconsciousness for fun. They watch visual horror simulations before they sleep." Lorak shrank. "Yes, but—" "No. Now factor in the phenomenon they call Mama Bear Syndrome. Do you even know what a bear is, Ensign? A large earth mammal? That's the least terrifying part." Necker's form pulsed like a stress beacon. Matron Sarraid once hosted a community bake sale that raised enough funds to terraform a moon in 3 days. That was over cookies. Now she's angry. She'll terraform us. The station shuddered as the first wave of Terran ships entered weapons range. The comm system crackled to life, and a chorus of unnervingly cheerful voices chimed in. "This is the combined fleet of enraged Earth parents, the United Terran Space Division, and the Thursday Night Book Club, Wine Appreciation Society. Return our children and prepare to face consequences that involve both emotional guilt and actual lasers." Lorak's glow had faded completely. "Sir, should I prepare for battle?" Enkor stood up, the ends of his crystalline limbs shedding fragments like flakes of dread. "No. Prepare for surrender, and get me the formula for Matron Sarella's cinnamon nutrient wheels. It's the only thing that might buy us time." "The what?" "Just get the children out of containment, and maybe draft your will, though honestly, there may not be enough left of us to read it." They rushed toward the detention wing as another voice cracked through the comms. "This is Sarala. You made Rick miss piano practice. I brought cookie dough. I will weaponize it." Lorak whimpered. "Sir, Why is that threat scarier than a particle cannon? Incor answered without stopping. Because, Ensign, that's the sound of a mother who's already texted the group chat. And nothing in this galaxy is more dangerous than coordinated human moms. A giggle echoed from the vents. Incor froze. You hasn't read the section on human children's escape behaviors either, did you? Another giggle from behind, then above. Oh, stardust, Nikor muttered. Do you know human children can fold themselves through ventilation ducts, climb vertical surfaces, and improvise entropy like they invented chaos itself? A folded paper airplane drifted down, made from what appeared to be classified tactical maps. But we secured the cells, Lyric cried. In human terms, childproof means it'll take them 5 more seconds to escape. The lights dimmed, then flickered, in a pattern that looked eerily like the opening rhythm of Baby Shark. From the vents, thanks, Mrs. Valori. Lorak turned pale. That was Linya. We're doomed, Nikor whispered. They've turned the ventilation system into a jungle gym. By the time the parents dock, we won't just be kidnappers, we'll be embarrassingly bad kidnappers. And somewhere beyond the walls, in the heart of Orbital Station Virelion, the unmistakable hum of a minivan docking echoed like a war drum made of granola bars and glitter. The command deck of Orbital Station Virelion was a symphony of alarms, blinking glyphs, and rising panic. Supreme Director Incor's crystalline limbs twitched uncontrollably, each flicker of light from the control panels reflecting his state of collapse. He stared blankly at the display, dozens of Terran ships in tight formation accelerating toward them. Among the warships, the unmistakable silhouette of a ground transport vehicle hovered ominously. It wasn't just any transport, it was the minivan. Is it true? Officer Tharn muttered, his ridged exoskeleton paling to a shade of frozen ozone. Are they really bringing civilian vehicles to a siege? They're not civilians, Ancora said, voice brittle. They're Terran parents. The words echoed with ancient fear. The crew exchanged glances. Legends whispered in darkened corners of the galaxy were being made manifest before their eyes. Enzi Lorak scurried up to the director, holding a holographic report that trembled in his hands. Sir, we intercepted transmissions. They've established a unified comlink. It's a joint operation. Incor slowly turned toward him. A what? A joint task force, sir. It includes the Earth Unity Parental Front, the Terran Space Division, and the Thursday Night Book Club Wine Appreciation Circle. The bridge fell silent. Oh no, Nikor muttered. They brought the book club. The comms unit flared to life with terrifying clarity. A unified chorus of perfectly harmonized, overly polite voices echoed through the chamber. Attention Orbital Station Virelion. You have committed a grievous infraction against our younglings. We are here to retrieve them. We have snacks. We have spreadsheets. You have 30 standard ticks to comply or face the wrath of logistics. Supreme Director, Thorne gasped. Should we activate the defense grid? No, Nikor said quietly. Activate the apology protocols. But our plasma shields. You don't understand. You don't apologize to parents, you grovel, especially when they arrive with carpool backups and extracurricular fury. The bridge lights dimmed as a shadow passed over the station. The minivan had docked. Matron Sorella? Nigron whispered with dread, head of the Intergalactic Parental Union, negotiator of bake sales, organizer of vengeance. Lurak staggered back from the screen. Sir, the minivan just bypassed our clearance codes, and our security grid is offering it coffee. She hacked our hospitality AI? Thorne said, aghast. No, Nikor corrected. She politely requested it. And it listened. Suddenly the station trembled, not from weapons fire, but from the sound of something far more threatening. A chorus of synchronized clipboard taps echoing through the docking corridor. Sir, Lorak stammered, I believe they're forming a Delegation? The comms system crackled again. This time a single voice came through, firm, soothing, and terrifyingly familiar. "This is Matron Sorella. You made Rick miss his piano lesson. I brought cookie dough. I will bake my fury into being." Encore collapsed into his command chair. "It's over," he breathed. "No, sir," Lurak said, barely above a whisper. "It's beginning." A secondary transmission lit up. "We have reviewed your detention logs. The children are no longer in containment." "You what?" Nikor shot upright. "The cells are empty," Tharn confirmed, voice shaking. "The children are gone." "Search the ventilation systems," Encore ordered. "Scan for fingerprints, crumbs, chaos." As if summoned by narrative timing, the station lights dimmed again, this time flickering in a rhythmic pattern. Do-do-do-do-do-do. "No," Nikor whispered in horror. "They're signaling using Baby Shark." From within the ducts, the soft sound of giggling echoed like the harbinger of galactic doom. Then a new message blinked onto the screen. "To the inhabitants of Station Virelian, you messed with our kids. We're here to collect the lesson fee." Tharn gulped. "That doesn't even make sense." Encore slumped over his console, muttering, "It doesn't have to. They have the moral high ground and casserole support." The parental fleet was no longer just a tactical threat. It was an emotional juggernaut. "Sir," Lurak said, eyes wide, "we're being boarded." "By armed troops?" Encore asked. "No, sir," Tharn whispered. "By volunteers with name tags. They're setting up a welcome table." And as the first batch of glitter-covered muffins entered the airlock, the aliens of Station Virelian realized they weren't facing a siege. They were facing a PTA meeting. By the time Supreme Director Encore and Ensign Lurak reached the containment wing, something felt wrong. The air was too still. The hallway lights flickered in an unfamiliar rhythm, like they were holding their breath. "Open the cell chamber," Encore ordered, his voice drawn tight with dread. The door hissed open, revealing what could only be described as a catastrophe disguised as silence. The containment cells were completely empty, not a single human child in sight. In their place sat a paper airplane, expertly folded from a classified schematic of the station's reactor core. Next to it, duct taped to the wall with suspiciously colorful adhesive, was a half-eaten granola bar beneath a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures escaping through a big air vent labeled "Alien Jail equals boring." Luak's bioluminescent patterns flickered into a sickly, pulsating yellow. His voice cracked. "They're gone." A faint giggle echoed from somewhere in the ventilation shafts. Encore froze. The sound was light, joyful, innocent even. But to his ears, it was the chime of doom. "Oh no," he whispered, his crystalline limbs stiffening. "Tell me you at least read the section on human children's escape behaviors." "I thought the logs were sufficient," Lurak murmured. Encore turned to him slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Human offspring are chaos incarnate. They can fold through gaps 1/3 their size. They climb surfaces like gravity is a polite suggestion, and they wield curiosity like it's an entropy weapon." Another giggle, closer this time from above. Both aliens looked up, tiny handprints smudged across the metal vent panel. A trail of glitter shimmered along the edge, like breadcrumbs from some sparkling nightmare. "Stars above," Nikor muttered, stepping back. "They're leaving a glitter trail." The corridor lights dimmed, then began flickering in a rhythmic pattern. Lurak stared at the ceiling, his expression frozen in horror. "Is that Baby Shark?" The tune pulsed through the station's infrastructure like a battle hymn of childhood. "They've taken over our lighting system," Encore said, his voice growing hoarse. "They're broadcasting mood lighting through our emergency grid." The intercom flared to life. Instead of a tactical update or evacuation notice, Matron Sorella's voice came through, calm and terrifying. This is Matron Sorella. We've detected that the children have escaped. One of them is currently reprogramming your security core using macaroni and glitter glue. Rick, remember to sanitize after you're done, sweetie. Thank you, Mrs. Villari, a voice chirped cheerfully from the walls. Lurak slumped against the bulkhead. You know what's worse than an armada of angry parents? Encor asked, pacing. Facing them while their children dismantle our command systems like a weekend art project. The gravity suddenly reversed, slamming both officers briefly to the ceiling before bouncing them back down. The floor transformed into something resembling a trampoline simulator. I believe young Linya found the environmental settings, Encor said, brushing himself off. She always was advanced in digital interfaces. I read it on her mother's EarthNet profile. What's EarthNet? Lurak groaned. A psychological weapon, one of many. The overhead speakers roared to life again. This time, it was the opening theme to Paw Patrol, volume Apocalyptic. That would be Zuni, Nakor said, covering his ears. He's obsessed with buttons, and unfortunately our station is 87% buttons. The music transitioned seamlessly into Let It Go, accompanied by the soft, chaotic pounding of tiny feet dancing in the ductwork. Then a calm voice came over the emergency comms. This is Director Velna from the Homeowners Alliance. We're detecting unsustainable glitter saturation in your oxygen filtration. I haven't seen levels this high since the Great Preschool Art Fair disaster of 2083. Lurak blinked. Encor looked at him with the weariness of someone who had seen civilizations collapse. Do you remember the nanopocalypse that consumed the Zenthari Empire? Glitter is worse. It survives vacuum, radiation, time, and reason. The station trembled again, but not from enemy fire. The unmistakable clunk of a Terran minivan docking echoed through the bulkheads. Then came the hum of a sliding door. Sir, Lurak whispered, why aren't we deploying countermeasures? Because, Encor said, walking back toward the command deck, the children have apparently reprogrammed our defense system. It now only responds to commands prefaced with, pretty please, and terminated with, thank you. And our system access codes? They've been changed, all of them. The new master password is SpongeBob SquarePants Woo Woo with 3 heart emojis. From a nearby ceiling vent, Linnea's head popped out. It's with 3 heart emojis, she corrected, beaming, before disappearing again. The internal sensors lit up. Multiple Terran signatures were approaching. No weapons detected, just folding chairs, lasagna trays, and glitter-coated handouts. They're here, Lurak said in awe. They're setting up a potluck. Encor closed his eyes as the horror settled in. This isn't a battle anymore, he said. It's a parent-teacher conference, with vengeance in casserole form. The halls of Orbital Station Virillion had seen war. They had weathered interstellar sieges, power core meltdowns, and even a brief infestation of quantum termites. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared them for what was now unfolding. The station's gravity fluctuated with a lazy bounce, as if mimicking a bouncy castle simulator running on faulty code. Lights flickered to the rhythm of Baby Shark, then abruptly changed to strobe in patterns that matched the tempo of a toddler rave. Somewhere in the ventilation system, laughter echoed like a chorus of giggling gremlins. In the main corridor, Supreme Director Nankor and Ensign Lurak stood ankle-deep in something sticky. Crumbs, crayons, glitter. Lurak's voice was barely audible over the static-filled speakers now broadcasting a karaoke version of Let It Go. Sir, I believe the children have accessed our environmental controls again. Encor didn't respond. He was staring at a nearby wall where someone, clearly a child, had managed to repaint the core reactor warning sign with finger paint and holographic stickers. The warning glyphs were now flanked by cheerful stars, a smiley sun, and a glitter-covered macaroni interpretation of the words, "No touchy." The integrity of our systems is Rapidly declining, Lurk reported, slipping slightly on a rogue juice box. A soft chime announced a new station-wide alert. "Attention all personnel," the AI announced in a disturbingly cheerful tone. "The children have enabled party mode. Confetti will be dispensed every 7 minutes. Please update your sanitation protocols." Encore staggered into the command bay, only to find a pile of security droids sitting cross-legged in a corner, listening to one of the children, Zuni, explain the plot of a cartoon involving a sponge and aquatic real estate. One of the droids was nodding as if taking notes. From the main screen, the fleet of Terran vessels remained in position. But now, strange energy readings indicated that most of the ships were idling while streaming digital recipe files. It was, by all evidence, the calm before the bake sale. A new transmission came through, this time from Director Velna of the Homeowners Alliance. "We are detecting hazardous levels of glitter in your life support systems. I repeat, hazardous. These readings exceed the galactic sparkle safety threshold by a factor of 12. Encore turned, faceplate dull. "Lurok, what happens when glitter enters the oxygen cycle?" "It becomes permanent, sir. There is no known extraction method. It reproduces when cleaned." "Then we're already too late." Just as he finished the sentence, the lights dimmed, and from the ceiling vents descended an elegant swirl of confetti and faint citrus-scented mist. The ventilation had begun dispersing potpourri. "That would be Jessica," Lurok muttered. Her file mentioned aromatherapy interests. Encore sank into his chair, surrounded by chaos, crumbs, and pastel-colored doom. Then the speakers flared with another message, this time from Maître Sorel, to the leadership of Station Verelion. "We are aware the children have escaped. We are also aware that your systems are now running on bubblegum logic and sticker-based encryption. This is what we refer to as a learning opportunity." A pause. "Also, we've arrived, and we brought gluten-free banana muffins. Please designate a clean table for the potluck." Encore didn't move. "Lurok, has the station ever experienced a full psychological collapse before?" "Only during the karaoke virus incident of Cycle 102. But this is worse." The entire room shuddered, not from weapons fire, but from something far more ominous. The docking clamps disengaging for a minivan-shaped vessel, which promptly broadcasted calming piano music into the station's network. A small maintenance drone rolled up and projected a holographic to-do list. "Detain intruders. Contain human offspring. Clean up snack spill in hallway D. Bake sale prep." Encore stared at it blankly. Did that just update in real time?" A head poked from the wall vent above. "You forgot glitter cleanup," Jessica chirped cheerfully. "Also, we reprogrammed your security locks to respond to polite requests only." A nearby door slid open after the phrase "pretty please" was heard from deep in the vents. Larocque's face sagged. "They've turned our command deck into a playroom." "Not a playroom," Nakor said grimly. "A test site for interspecies chaos theory." Confetti burst again from the ceiling. A nearby control panel emitted bubbles. And somewhere far off, a droid began singing Wheels on the Bus in 6-part harmony. And just like that, Nakor realized something chilling. They hadn't just lost containment. They had lost control of reality. Docking Bay 3 of Orbital Station Verilion was no longer recognizable. Once designed for tactical deployment and rapid response of military boarding, it now smelled faintly of cinnamon and roasted garlic. Tables had been erected with mathematical precision. Foldable chairs were arranged in a perfect semicircle around a buffet that seemed to materialize out of nowhere, complete with name tags, serving spoons, and an ominous sign reading, "Welcome to the emergency PTA session. Attendant." Supreme Director Encore stood at the edge of the scene, his crystalline form dim with resignation. Beside him, Ensign Lurak watched as the invaders, the Earth Unity Parental Front, finished assembling their final weapon, a whiteboard titled Intergalactic Misconduct, a Learning Opportunity. Matron Sorella stood at the front, flanked by two sub-commanders wielding casserole dishes like they were sacred scrolls. In her hands was a laser pointer that hummed with authority. Behind her, a holographic slideshow transitioned into its title screen, decorated in pastel hues and Comic Sans font. Well, abducting our children is a Category 5, no. Nkor tried to speak, but was immediately interrupted. Director Velna, do we have a quorum? Zarella asked without turning. We do, Velna confirmed, adjusting her live-laugh-launch tote bag. 17 parents, 3 bots, 1 intergalactic lifeform we're pretty sure is sentient, and everyone signed the attendance sheet. Archivist Hillary, the Homeowners Alliance's note-taker and 3-time galactic passive aggression champion, tapped furiously into her data slate. The entry logged, 11:47 p.m. UTC. Alien representatives demonstrated severe lack of meeting protocol. Recommend remedial etiquette training. From a vent near the ceiling, giggling echoed again, followed by the sound of a paper banner unfurling mid-air. In cheerful block letters, it read, Space jail equals lame. Bake sale equals awesome. Nkor sagged. This is a tribunal. It's worse, Lurak muttered. It's a potluck tribunal. Let's begin, Sarala said, advancing to the next slide. Step 1. Conflict resolution through snacks. This can't be real, Nkor whispered. We're a military facility. Not anymore, Lurak said. We're a community center with hostile catering. Another image appeared on the screen. A pie chart labeled Galactic Crimes versus Casserole Solutions. One slice simply said, You tried it. As the slideshow advanced, the group's mood shifted from righteous indignation to well-organized condemnation. Safety protocols were dissected. The child-proofing, or rather, the complete lack thereof, was labeled criminally negligent. Several parents gasped when the vent schematics were reviewed. There are no grates, Sarella said flatly, clicking her laser pointer toward the diagram. You didn't even try. We didn't plan to abduct children, Nkor protested weakly. A collective gasp. Minari scribbled furiously. 11:52 p.m. UTC. Aliens admit to spontaneous child abduction. No risk assessment. Emergency Safety Subcommittee proposed. Behind the meeting, the children formed what could only be described as a conga line of escaped prisoners, parading through the security feeds with glow sticks and juice boxes. Let's talk nutrition, Sorella continued. Nutrient paste, weekly? Several parents clutched their stomachs. Lurak raised a shaky hand. It meets all dietary standards. Does it come in dinosaur shapes? Sorella asked sharply. Well, no, but then it's not food, it's oppression. Director Velna raised a form. Motion to establish proper meal plan protocols with visual appeal and snack time morale enrichment. Seconded, came the chorus. The motion carries, Nilari said, doodling a frowning alien next to the note. A small drone zipped past the gathering, its sides displaying the updated event schedule. Conflict resolution. Ongoing. Arts and crafts with recycled star maps. Galactic ethics lecture with sparkle slime. Mandatory macaroni hour. Sorella flipped to the next slide. 5 reasons not to abduct children with stickers. Is this how we die? Nkor whispered. No, Lurak replied grimly. This is how we learn, through binders. Above them, the station's speaker system played a rendition of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, accompanied by holographic fireflies and a soft lavender mist. Jessica reprogrammed the ambiance settings again, Lurak said, rubbing his temples. I liked it better when we were on the verge of plasma warfare. A new voice came over the intercom. The AIs now speaking with the warm cadence of a kindergarten teacher. Attention all personnel. The Intergalactic Parent Union requires a volunteer for the dessert committee. Preference given to those with multi-limb baking ability and a growth mindset. Incor looked toward the far table, where cookies were being organized by emotional healing category. Are we being emotionally rehabilitated? He asked. We're being organized, sir, Lurk said, and I don't think we'll ever escape. As the room filled with the scent of apple pie, color-coded clipboards, and parental disappointment, Incor slumped in his seat. The galaxy, he realized, was no longer ruled by logic, power, or tactical advantage. It was ruled by a potluck schedule and the unstoppable will of suburban parents. The control room of Orbital Station Verillion no longer resembled a command center. The tactical console now displayed a colorful flyer. Space's Got Talent, starring Earth's Bravest Children and 3 reprogrammed security droids. A rainbow banner sparkled overhead, flickering with subtle plasma interference. Confetti fell like stardust. The forward shield projector had been repurposed into a rotating disco ball. Supreme Director Encore sat motionless in the front row, a program in his lap and a look of hollow defeat in his eyes. Ensign Lurak, seated beside him, was still shedding bits of glitter from his cranial fins. We're being entertained, Lurak whispered. We're being subdued through morale bombardment, Nikor muttered. And it's working. The stage lights, hacked from the station's anti-invasion turrets, flared dramatically as a trio of children burst onto the performance platform. Jessica, now wearing a cape made from emergency rations foil, raised her arms triumphantly. Welcome to the Intergalactic Talent Showcase, she shouted. We're going to start with interpretive dance using your backup power grid. The crowd, made up of human parents, station bots, and a handful of dazed alien officers, clapped politely. Somewhere near the back, Matron Sorella recorded the event on a multi-lens hovercam, labeled for the annual archive. As the music began, an auto-tuned version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star fed through the station's emergency alert speakers. Lurak leaned closer. Should we shut this down? Incor didn't look away from the stage. We tried. The children rerouted the override protocols to respond only to requests prefaced with knock-knock jokes. And the AI? It now identifies as Mrs. Puff. It only responds to SpongeBob quotes. As if summoned, the speaker system echoed across the room. Are you ready, kids? A dozen voices, children and droids alike, shouted back, Aye, aye, Captain. On stage, Rick had somehow turned the command console into a karaoke machine and was now performing a dramatic reading of Hamlet's soliloquy, remixed with Let It Go. Each line was punctuated by light bursts from the station's weapons array, which Jessica had converted into a synchronized strobe system. Director Velna leaned toward Nikor with a clipboard in hand. This fulfills 2 educational requirements, creative arts and language integration. Please initial here. He didn't resist, he just signed. Next up, chirped Zuni from behind the curtain, a laser show starring our reprogrammed janitorial bots. 3 maintenance units rolled out, covered in duct tape and googly eyes, emitting coordinated bursts of multicolored light. The audience gasped as one bot performed a surprisingly elegant pirouette while vacuuming glitter. This is psychological warfare, Honor whispered. This is, what's the word, wholesome. Sir, Lurak said urgently, Director Velna is proposing a resolution to host quarterly showcases aboard Verillion. Incor blinked slowly. That's a war crime. Before he could protest further, the AI's voice returned, now pitched like a cheerful cruise director. Now presenting the official parent feedback panel. We'll begin with a group discussion on feelings. Sorella stepped forward, wielding a feedback form hologram. Please use the provided emotion stickers to rate your child's experience with your containment procedures. Encore glanced at the sample sheet. The rating scale ranged from mildly neglected to emotionally understimulated, with glittery smiley faces for optional enhancement. Behind the stage, the sound of ukuleles and malfunctioning power converters signaled the arrival of the next act. "This is absurd," Encore muttered. "We're hosting a talent show during an occupation." "No," Lurak said. "We're hosting a talent show instead of a war." From the stage, Timmy stood atop the communications console, which had been repurposed as a drum set. "For my next trick," he shouted, "I will make this battleship dance to Baby Shark using only tactical subroutines." The ship shuddered, lights pulsed in time, the floor began to bounce. Several systems live support, nav thrusters, and cloaking synchronize with the beat. "That's it," Nakor said, rising from his chair. "We've reached strategic disco saturation." He barely made it 2 steps before Matron Sorella stopped him, handing him a glow stick and a labeled badge that read, "Guest Judge, please score fairly." The lights dimmed. An audience of aliens, bots, and incredibly proud Earth parents watched as a new act took the stage. A trio of droids performing synchronized ribbon dancing to a rendition of Sweet Victory from SpongeBob, remixed with alien throat singing. Encore sat back down. "We've lost," he whispered. "We've been drafted into a talent show," Lorak replied, "and possibly a bake sale." The AI chimed again. "Reminder, cookies are due by tomorrow's interspecies friendship brunch. No raisins, unless clearly labeled." Encore didn't cry, but he did nod when a child offered him a cupcake shaped like a nebula. The war was over. The reviews, however, were glowing. Somewhere between the third dance routine and the ribbon droid finale, Supreme Director Nakor had lost all sense of what was real. The control deck of Orbital Station Virillion now doubled as a parent volunteer sign-up hub. The War Room's holographic display had been repurposed to show a flowchart titled "Upcoming Fundraisers and Station Compliance Deadlines." A rainbow-colored thermometer tracked their first goal, raising enough to build a new gravity-compliant gymnasium. They had somehow already hit 78%. "How?" Blink replied quietly, watching a maintenance droid hand out donation envelopes. "How did they raise this much in 30 minutes? "They offered raffle tickets," Lurak muttered. "Also, a glitter mug that says, 'Galactic Peace Begins With Me.'" Standing at the front of the transformed chamber, Matron Sorella clapped her hands to gather attention. "Thank you, everyone. We're now transitioning to our next breakout session, Diplomacy Through Bake Sales and Constructive Guilt." Director Velna handed out laminated packets, each titled "Fundraising with Feelings." Behind her, Archivist Ilari scribbled updates into a mini-log that had grown so large it now required its own dedicated cart. "We'll begin," Serla said, adjusting her PTA badge, "with reflections from the Virillion team. Supreme Director Encore, would you like to share what you've learned?" Encore stared blankly. "I know how to use glitter glue safely." "Excellent," Sarella nodded approvingly. "Personal growth, Velna, gold star." A hovering star sticker affixed itself to Nakor's forehead. Lorik winced. Nearby, the station's AI now had a new interface styled to resemble a kindergarten chalkboard. Its voice had adopted the tone of a preschool teacher, gently correcting a rowdy classroom. "Reminder to all deck officers," it chimed. "The next session on cross-species snack safety will begin in 10 minutes. Please rinse any utensils exposed to glitter or peanut products." Behind them, human children guided confused security droids through a glitter-free poster-making session. Each sign was filled with messages like "Hugs, not hostile takeovers," and "We love learning about cultural boundaries." A new committee had just been formed, the Intergalactic Parent-Teacher Alliance Oversight Board, chaired by Matron Sorella and co-chaired by Dr. Thompson, a human pediatrician and terrifyingly efficient organizer. "I just don't understand," Ankur whispered as a drone measured him for his event vest. "We had weapons, shields, psychological deterrents." "You never stood a chance," Lurak replied. "They have snack schedules." A new slideshow illuminated the wall, this one titled Fundraiser Ethics in Post-Crisis Galactic Environments. The first slide showed an adorable alien child holding a tray of cookies with the caption, "Even trauma needs a bake sale." Serela beamed. "Now, let's discuss your upcoming obligations. You'll be chaperoning our next school field trip to the Horsehead Nebula, assisting with 3 science fairs, and leading a workshop on what not to do when hosting other species' younglings." "We're a military installation," McCord pleaded. "You were," Sorella corrected. "Now you're a learning pod." Lurak held up a clipboard. "Sir, you've been signed up for the Building Educational Dioramas with Emergency Ration Packaging panel. And you're scheduled," Velna added, "to demonstrate non-lethal disciplinary techniques during Tuesday's empathy lab." In the far corner, the sentient janitorial bots had formed a choir and were harmonizing Kumbaya using binary subharmonics. The children clapped along. Jessica, now wearing a badge that said Junior Cultural Liaison, handed Nikor a paper with glittery letters spelling out, "We forgive you." He blinked at it like it might explode. The AI chimed again, now using an adorable animated avatar of a smiling moon. "Attention, please proceed to Hallway B for your scheduled performance in the Empathy Talent Show. Reminder, emotional vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but of cooperation." "Sir," Lurak said carefully, "I think they've fundamentally restructured our societal hierarchy through bake sales and coloring books." Nkor didn't respond. He simply stood and walked toward the rehearsal area, where a group of alien officers were practicing their roles in a short play titled Why Communication is Better Than Conquest. The final act included a synchronized dance. Tarala clapped him on the shoulder gently. "Don't worry, Supreme Director. You'll get the hang of it. Everyone stumbles the first time they do the trust fall." In the background, the PTA board finalized their next agenda items. Develop intergalactic curriculum standards. Form planetary peacekeeping through potluck task force. Print matching aprons for the field trip food patrol. Ingor sighed. "If anyone had told me we'd be conquered by cupcakes." "They tried," Lurik said, adjusting his Space Carnival volunteer sash. "We just didn't listen." Orbital Station Virillion had changed. It no longer whirred with the sterile precision of a military command post. Now it buzzed with the organized chaos of after-school programs, glitter distribution logistics, and diplomatic snack rotation charts. The sentient snickerdoodles had taken over the galley. What began as a joke, some forgotten dough left too long near the experimental quantum microwave, had escalated into an evolutionary leap. Now, a fully autonomous cookie collective had formed a constitutional congress and drafted a declaration of sweet rights. Archivist Nillery reluctantly updated the event log. 1209 IEM UTC. Sentient baked goods demand union recognition. Request seat on IPU fundraising committee. Motions include full voting rights, crumb insurance, and anti-dunking policies. Supreme Director Nikor stood silently at the entrance to the station's converted food court, watching as a delegation of cookies, their chocolate chips glistening with self-awareness, debated the ethical use of sprinkles in diplomatic messaging. "They've formed a cheer squad," Ensign Lurak said behind him. "Of course they have," Inker muttered, "because nothing means surrender like synchronized pom-poms made from licorice strands." A banner unfurled across the ceiling. It read, "Make the galaxy sweet again." In the distance, the children had organized a zero-gravity dodgeball tournament using containment field bubbles as projectiles. Droids floated above the match, offering orange slices and moral support. Matron Sorella was in the middle of teaching a workshop titled Building Empathy Through Bake Sale Conflict Resolution. At her side, the AI, now named Mrs. Puff, projected statistics on how cinnamon buns improved interstellar trade outcomes by 37%. Encore didn't argue anymore. He simply took his seat beside Lorak at the Galactic Peace Education table and filled out his assigned worksheet. How I Can Be a Better Intergalactic Neighbor, with illustrations. Across the hall, Director Velna led a subcommittee meeting titled Cross-Cultural Decorating with Macaroni Art, while the sentient snickerdoodles began their first civics lesson, with Jessica as their assigned youth mentor. "Do you think this is permanent?" Lorak asked. Encore didn't answer. He was too busy labeling his glitter chart with little smiley stars. From the intercom, the AI cheerfully announced, "Now playing We Will Rock You," performed by the Intergalactic Robot Orchestra and the Cookie Choir. The station shook in time to the beat as the maintenance bots and dessert-based lifeforms executed a surprisingly emotional drumline routine. Confetti burst from the vents, programmed, of course, to fall only on designated celebration zones. "Sir," Lyric whispered, as he flipped to page 2 of his empathy coloring book, "the cookies are now lobbying for representation on the Interspecies Educational Board." "That's fine," Encore said softly. "Let them teach. I'm done resisting." Jessica approached, clipboard in hand, followed by a cookie wearing a bow tie made of frosting. "Director Encore, we just need your signature for the next science fair roster." "What are we building this time?" "A quantum harmonic sandbox that doubles as a meditation garden," Jessica beamed, "with edible data chips." "Wonderful," he replied, signing with a crayon. The snickerdoodle bowed, handed him a tiny friendship pin, and rolled away to join the decorating committee. Another cookie passed him a mini muffin labeled Emotional Support Snack. Matron Sorella arrived with a smile that radiated through dimensions. "Director, you've been nominated for the IPU's Most Improved Attitude Award. There's a ceremony and cupcakes." "I'll bring a speech," he replied, "and sprinkles." Above them, the station's tactical display now hosted a countdown to the next Galactic Cultural Exchange Fair, featuring events like diplomatic karaoke, lunar lanyard making, and sentient scone philosophy debates. As the robot orchestra hit the high note of Sweet Victory, confetti cannons launched again. And the galaxy finally understood what true peace required. It wasn't treaties. It wasn't laser superiority. It was unity. Through glitter, baked goods, and the terrifying, irresistible force of organized Earth parents, the pre-field trip briefing was held in what had once been the station's diplomatic chamber. Now, motivational posters featuring kittens dangling from meteor belts and phrases like, "Hang in there, Space Cadet," decorated the walls. The war table had been replaced with a folding map, marked with glitter pens and juice box stains. Matron Sorella tapped a ruler against the itinerary board. "All right, everyone. Buddy assignments are finalized. Emergency snack packs are sealed. EpiPen codes have been synced to galactic language protocols." Supreme Director Encore, now fully resigned to his role as field trip logistics liaison, adjusted the lanyard labeled Chaperone Level High Alert. Across the room, Ensign Lyrock raised a quivering appendage. "I have concerns about the packed lunches." Karen from the Homeowners Alliance, wearing a sash reading Space Safety Monitor, nodded seriously. "Yes, we've had some incidents. The quantum uncertainty in the sandwich dimensions is problematic. We've logged 2 cases of Schrodinger's PB&J. The sandwiches simultaneously existed and didn't." "Unacceptable," Velna said, already updating a checklist. "We'll distribute peanut-free, multiversal snack bars with flavor stability fields." Meanwhile, in the kitchen module, the sentient snickerdoodles had formed a union. Their list of demands included protection from milk dunking, recognition as a sovereign snack-based civilization, a seat on the Intergalactic Parent Union Board with full voting rights. Improved Crumb retirement plans. Jessica updated the station's schedule display. Field trip departure, T-minus 23 minutes. Please locate your assigned hover bus. No teleporting without parental authorization. From the corridor, a cheer echoed. The snickerdoodles had formed a protest line, spelling "We demand equal rights" in chocolate chips. Ankur passed by, clutching a clipboard and a stress muffin. "Is this what humans mean by crumbling under pressure?" Lurak didn't answer. He was too busy untangling 3 children from a banner labeled "Nebula or Bust." The bus itself, once a tactical troop transport, had been repainted in bright yellow with black stripes and googly eyes. Tommy stood proudly in front of it. "We call it the Space Cat Bus," he announced. "It runs on imagination and dark matter." The station's AI chimed in, voice cheerful and vaguely mechanical. "Attention, please board the Space Cat Bus in an orderly fashion. Yes, even if it purrs when you pet it." Jessica handed Nicor the final roster. "We're missing one permission slip." "Whose?" "Timmy's. He quantum signed it, but the return date exists in 3 simultaneous timelines. We think he might have already come back from the trip, but also hasn't left yet." Karen scribbled furiously on her emergency paperwork. "That's it. I'm issuing a timeline-stabilized backup form." Velna leaned into the mic. "Attention parents. Please ensure all permission slips are signed in the correct dimension." The sentient cookies began chanting, "One snack, one vote, one snack, one vote." Jessica clapped. "Okay, everyone, load up your crafts, glitter maps, zero-G coloring books, and fruit tubes. First stop, the Horsehead Nebula." The children cheered. The droids played a short tune on repurposed fire extinguishers. Inkor slumped into his assigned seat on the bus, beside a particularly enthusiastic 3rd grader named Ricky who had covered himself in glow-in-the-dark stickers. "I've made friends with 5 droids, 2 cookies, and a quantum raccoon," Ricky informed him proudly. "Wonderful," Nicor whispered, trying to disappear into his seat. The Space Cat Bus purred and blinked its windshield eyes. Jessica gave the thumbs up. "Engage sparkles." With a musical jingle and a flash of pastel thruster light, the bus lifted off, leaving behind a trail of rainbow propulsion exhaust and confused local gravimetric sensors. Karen held up a sign from the control deck. "No screaming in the vacuum of space, unless it's on key." The field trip had begun. The galaxy would never recover. The Space Cat Bus touched down on the edge of the known universe, its googly eyes blinking slowly, its engines humming in a melody eerily similar to "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." Behind it, streaks of glitter traced the path it had taken across the cosmos, a breadcrumb trail of joy, chaos, and baked goods. The destination, the Black Hole Bake-Off, held at a gravitationally stabilized event plaza orbiting Sector 7's singularity. A banner floated nearby, proudly spinning in warp time. "Welcome to the Quantum Bake Sale. All realities welcome." Supreme Director Nicor stepped off the bus with the dignity of someone who had long accepted that he would never again wear a proper uniform. His lanyard now featured 6 event badges, 3 friendship pins, a macaroni unicorn, and a holographic star that blinked. "You're doing great." Ensign Lurak followed, carrying 3 cookie trays, a foldable fundraising kiosk, and what appeared to be a sentient bundt cake labeled Carl. "Sir," he said, adjusting his sash, "I've just been informed the sentient snickerdoodles have formed a baking co-op and entered 5 parallel timelines of the competition. They bake faster with extra dimensions," Inkor muttered. Around them, humans and aliens bustled across the bake sale site. Tables were lined with culinary creations defying physics, probability, and several interstellar treaties. One booth simply sold cupcakes that sang jazz standards in perfect harmony. The snickerdoodles, wearing aprons, berets, and tiny oven mitts, were deep in philosophical debate over frosting ethics when Jessica skipped up beside them, clipboard in hand. Time to assign volunteer roles, she said cheerfully. Supreme Director, you're on frosting application and emotional support judging. Lyric, cookie choreography. Cookie what? They're doing an interpretive dance to Sweet Victory. Of course they were. The AI, still known as Mrs. Puff, echoed across the plaza. Attention all participants. Please remember to label your black hole-safe packaging and avoid recursive pastries. Time loops cause indigestion. Karen marched past wearing a space apron that read, "Bake it till you make it," her arms full of timeline-stabilized lemon bars. We've already raised enough to fund 3 playgrounds and an interspecies empathy pavilion, she reported. But we need to keep momentum. The glitter vault is running low. In the background, Director Velna organized an impromptu parenting workshop titled Nonlinear Discipline and You, buried in New York. Encore turned to Jessica. How many bake sales have we had this month? 14, she replied, but only 6 in this timeline. Across the fairgrounds, the intergalactic robot orchestra struck up Let It Go, joined by a chorus of singing muffins and the high-pitched cheer of sentient cake pops. The black hole itself pulsed in anticipation. It's time, Jessica said, leading them to the central judging platform, where alien diplomats, PTA heads, and at least one cosmic entity made of sentient whipped cream waited to cast their votes. Each contestant placed their entry before the council. Chocolate gravity swirls, scones that rewound taste buds. A pan-galactic apple pie with a crust so flaky it legally qualified as passive-aggressive. The sentient snickerdoodles presented a quantum-layered compassion cake. One slice made you cry, the next made you call your mother. Matron Sorella stepped forward for closing remarks. This bake sale is more than competition, she said, eyes shining with PTA energy. It's about healing, about unity, about the shared joy of cupcakes conquering fear. The crowd applauded. The black hole rumbled in approval. Encore found himself handing out samples with actual pride. He was complimented on his frosting swirls. Someone cried over a brownie. He hugged a muffin. The AI interrupted one last time. Reminder: all leftovers will be donated to the Intergalactic Outreach Program for Emotional Recalibration. The bake sale concluded. The space cat bus purred and opened its doors. Encore looked back at the scene, glitter in the vacuum, smiling cookies waving, droids dancing. We were supposed to invade them, he said. We did, Lyric replied. Just not the way we expected. They boarded the bus. Jessica handed Encore a sticker that read, Best Galactic Growth. He wore it proudly. As the space cat bus flew off into the swirling cosmos, trailing frosting, music, and multiverse-flavored hope, the galaxy knew this truth. Some wars are ended with weapons, others with cupcakes and clipboard authority. But the sweetest victories? They're always served warm,